All right. Hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining us today. And welcome to another episode of MVP Insights, a podcast that explores the brightest stars in the Microsoft ecosystem, our MVPs. So today I'm joined with Alicia Keener, Senior Consultant in RSM US, and a two-time MVP now, and community mentor and avid blogger at AliciaMVP.com. So welcome, Alicia.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you here and have your thoughts in particular around Dynamics 365 Finance. I know you have experience in the life sciences side of things and have been working with clients for many, many years. I was hoping to kick us off today by kind of talking about your MVP journey, but then also diving a little bit into your experience with 365 Finance. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about how that's come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started blogging about 2 years ago, and I literally sitting at my desk in my house. I was working from home at the time, still working from home, which I love a lot. And I was sitting there and I was just like, I had like 900 connections on LinkedIn. And literally I was like, why am I not giving back? Because all these years I've been, Googling and searching for things and taking advantage of other people's content, but yet I wasn't giving back. And so I started thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I really should start doing this. So I started tip of the day, just kind of on a whim, frankly. And it was in an effort to give back to people. Because my goal was if I could make one person's day better, that was success. Because the thing is when you touch one person, it touches another person, it touches another person. So if I could give information to someone that made their day better and actually allow them to go into a meeting and be the hero of their meeting, or actually work through any problem, to me that was success. So I started blogging, and today I started out with about 900 connections. Now I have over 9,000 connections in about 2 years, and my audience is in over 155 countries. And one of the things to know about me is my blogs are short and to the point. And pretty much where I get my ideas for blogging is more around, like, if someone asks me a question, I figure if someone else had a question, then someone else is going to maybe have the same question. So when I'm solutioning or giving out answers to someone, I turn around and just blog about it. And it seems to really resonate with the audience. And it's a lot of fun to give back. I've had so many opportunities to interact with people offline. I've met some amazing people through LinkedIn and through my blog site, and it's a real joy. It's a highlight of my day.
No, that's awesome. I think it's great too in a world again that a lot of us are now from home. It's hard to, I think, even physically get out there, and you as you kind of went through, hands touching hands kind of took me to like a Tom Jones, but I was like, yeah, it's important to keep that physical touch. And I think that's why events even like Community Summit are so critical because it is that great touch point where we can come in, we can ask questions. It's a lot different than asking Copilot a question out there, but coming in and getting a different aspect from an MVP like yourself who has that experience, who can really describe it in a different manner, or again, get to the point with it, to your point with your blogs, and have it consumed by a user out there, which I think is even more critical than ever in the world today. So thanks for that.
One of the things I like to do too is I like to think outside the box a little bit, because D365 is a tool. So how can you use the tool to meet your business objectives? And sometimes I'll get asked kind of peculiar questions like, how do you split revenue when you close a sales order? Well, on the surface, it looks like that's something you cannot do, but you can. And so whenever you start thinking a little bit differently and thinking a little bit outside of the traditional way of thinking, you find little tips and tricks and cool ways to actually leverage the tool to a greater capacity. So for me, those things are a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, well said. And something that, again, you couldn't do necessarily through a strong prompt, even with AI. So, again, a real critical reason why we have people like yourself in the community, which I think is even better that you're choosing to give back, right? And I think you're passionate about it, obviously, as we've kicked off the call today. How do you take that passion and again bring that back into your approach as you look at your training and mentorship or your consulting work on a daily basis? What does that look like as you get into working with users?
Well, one of the nice things about being in consulting is you rarely come across the same situation twice. You'll find things that are similar, but things that are a little bit different. Some things are the same, like in chart of accounts or different postings or this, that, and the other. But when you start getting that creative way of thinking, it kind of puts you on a trajectory. So I think it's one of the things that's really helped me do is become an active listener. So whenever I'm listening to a client or I'm listening to a particular problem, I'm sitting there processing it because I know it may be a little bit different than what maybe seem like a traditional type question. So I think it's helped me become an active listener as well as learning to think differently to come up with different solutions or creative solutions for clients.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, as you look at each of them being different, they all have different needs. They all have different ways of consuming what you're delivering to them. It takes a really out of the box thinker to bring back, solutions that will be impactful to their day to day too. Um, and I think as an MVP, you have kind of the insight to what Microsoft's building and developing. What have you seen to be some of the more impactful changes you see in D365 finance or otherwise over the past year?
One of the things I'm really glad to see Microsoft doing is leveraging Teams to
Mhm.
interact with D365. For me, that is an absolute game changer because now all of a sudden I can create a bot or a Power BI report or something like that in Teams that then actually leverages the D365 data, uses a D365 security, and actually allows you to create records from Teams. So, like at RSM, we actually created a bot that allows us to create purchase orders from Teams. So you literally go in there and say, hey, I want to create a purchase order. It says, who's your vendor? You put it in. What items do you want to buy? The quantity, and you do that, it's literally creating a purchase order on the back end. So now all of a sudden, I don't have to know anything about D365, right? I'm
Mhm.
just Joe Blow working at a movie theater, needing to order popcorn all of a sudden, right? I may not even speak English. So now all of a sudden, I'm in my own language using a very universal tool called Teams to actually interact with that D365 database. And I think for me, that is absolute game changer. On the front that Microsoft's doing.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think it's critical again for people like you who are interacting with Microsoft to give that feedback to shape the way some of these things are being built, designed, or how they're impacting users in the end. So I think a great call out there in particular with Teams because adoption there continues to build.
Yeah.
Um, and as we talk about adoption, I think one of the best ways, we see user adoption in the community is events like Community Summit North America. I know you're going to be speaking this year at Community Summit North America in particular. 40% of people coming to the community summit are looking to optimize their environment. So can you talk first a little bit about what your sessions will be at Community Summit? And then second, maybe what the takeaways will be for those present and what they can expect from you in particular?
One of the great things about events like the summit, this will actually be my first time speaking at the summit, so I'm super excited about that. But one of the great things is networking across from a client base to ISVs to other Microsoft partners and really just networking because at the end of the day, we're all humans and people like to work with people they know, like, and trust. So for me, the big key of Summit is get out there, meet people, share information because it's amazing at what you learn and ideas that you get that you never even knew were possible. For me, I'm going to be speaking on the D365 built-in tax engine. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't actually realize that there's a built-in tax engine in D365. So if you don't have Nexus in a lot of states, D365 tax engine is a great option for you. If you're in Europe or somewhere where you do value-added tax, it's a great option. And plus, there's no additional cost. So if you're working with a third-party tax engine, you'll know they're quite costly.
Yep.
So if you can leverage a built-in tool inside of D365, you have reduced costs, you have a holistic system, you don't have to worry about any kind of integrations. Everything is real-time built in. So my objective for speaking at the summit is to evangelize and expose and help people understand the D365 tax engine and see how they can maybe leverage it inside of their own organization.
See, so for those that attended today, some great cost saving tips and tricks here from Alicia, which is great. And I think one of many things you can experience when you attend an event like Community Summit, or to your point, just get involved in the community. And I think that's another maybe good point you can speak to. As you look at others or maybe peers in the community that want to become more involved in the community to become an MVP, can you kind of give some insight or guidance as you chose to get involved? How would you guide somebody who's maybe looking to get more involved with community?
For me, I really, whenever I blog and when I do different things, I speak to a younger version of myself. So I think it's one of those things at the end of the day, like I said, we're all humans. We all have basic needs. We all have the desire to grow and to learn and those kinds of things. And if I had my way, everyone would blog because I think we all have something to share. I think we all have a unique purpose in life. And when I may share information that's going to resonate with a user, someone else may share the same information that may resonate with a different user. And just for the sheer fact of communication style, approach, technique, and those kinds of things. So again, if I could encourage anyone else out there to start blogging or sharing information, do it. Because I think back many times, I'm like, what if I hadn't have started blogging 2 years ago? I wouldn't have this opportunity right now. I wouldn't be on this podcast right now if I hadn't have taken that nudge that said, hey, you need to start sharing and giving information to the community. And I cannot tell you how many opportunities it's opened up for me and giving me credibility when I do it on a sales cycle, or if I'm doing something on a delivery side. Just simply having MVP attached to my name immediately gives me credibility sitting at the table. So if you're interested in it at all, I would highly encourage you to look into it. It's time well spent, and everybody wins when you do it.
Yeah, well said. And that first step is obviously always the toughest one. I think in a world of AI where we see, hesitation to jump into something new, especially when it's this big and this impactful, and there's starting to be more tighter restrictions in organizational standpoint, right? That step is always challenging, especially when you're uncomfortable with that step. And I think again, hearing from people like yourself helps kind of reiterate, why it's so critical to get involved to help other people and how quickly it can spread, right? That voice can mirror out there and move somebody else, right, to do something even better, which oftentimes people aren't the most comfortable doing and making those steps or changes. So thank you for sharing your story in particular. I wanted to jump to what I call the lightning round as well in this. And I know not something I prep everybody for, but can you geek out for a second and give us maybe your favorite function or feature inside of finance with these 365?
It's a very small thing, but I think it's a mighty powerful thing. Microsoft, about a year ago, introduced something called financial dimension tags.
Okay.
All right. Now, on the surface, you think, okay, what's a tag and why do I care? So, whenever you deal with finances, you have your financial string. So, you have your main account, your financial dimensions, cost center, department, location, whatever it may be. Well, when you post that record, guess what? You can't change that dimension. So, if your location was wrong when you posted it, for SOX reasons, you can't, unless you reverse it, you have to go through all this stuff. Well, Microsoft came up with this concept of using tags. Well, tags work just like dimensions, like cost center, department, and those kinds of things. However, you can change them after you post. And
Okay.
why does that matter? Why is that important? One is you can create rules now around these financial dimension tags. So you can do some logic so they'll automatically populate. But then if you realize something's wrong, you can always change it after you post. But here's the other thing. Most people, when you talk to the controller, they keep this nice little spreadsheet out to the side for auditors because they're going to audit their financials and going to be like, okay, why did Bob spend $5,000? Well, you're not going to remember that, right? So you export the trial balance, and you start making notes in the spreadsheet. Well, if you use financial dimension tags, now all of a sudden you can make that note right on that voucher. So no more spreadsheets. You can do it right inside the application, and you can make those changes even after you post.
Very cool. Yeah, I wasn't personally aware of that myself, so I'm learning today as well. So no, that's a good one, and I think it plays into your background too. So it's funny. Everybody has their thoughts on what's cool in different areas of the product, but I think that's why we listen to these is to find new things that we didn't know the day before. How about a big win? Like what if you were to share a story about something you were involved in that was super cool that you found very rewarding or successful? What would that be?
So in 2023, I worked on a project, a life science project that made at-home dialysis machines. And we won Microsoft Partner of the Year for that project, which was super, super exciting. It was a great, accolades to the team for all their hard work. It was an international project between the UK and the US. And not just getting their award it was really, really sweet, and it was validating and getting that. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about the project is when we do work for our clients, we're really doing works for their clients. So now all of a sudden, I'm not just doing supply chain or finance for a company. I'm now helping a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister who has kidney failure, right? They have renal failure. Now they're able to do dialysis and have a better quality of life as a result of having the back office system being Microsoft that helps get that product and their supplies to them. So actually taking the thought of the work that we do to the end client and feeling some sense of gratification and some sense of adding value to the quality of life is absolutely priceless for me.
Yeah, you're making that change in the world and it directly correlates back as opposed to just selling technology to impacting somebody's day to day or quality of life, to your point. Yeah, amazing. Um, how about what's the most exciting bit of tech that you know is coming or just was recently released that you're pumped about?
I think the AI agents are going to be really interesting. I mean, when you start thinking about a purchasing agent or a supply, a sales order agent, and where these agents start to then take data and make decisions or propose decisions for you. And maybe even when agents start talking to other agents, I think that is going to be game changer because now all of a sudden it's going to be data that is going to be retrieved and acted upon in such in a rapid fire. Again, no one's going to have to run a report, sit in a meeting, make decisions. Now all of a sudden all that data is being sifted through some logic to then give you good information. And then again, you could build rules into it so the agent could actually make decisions. So just to give you an example, if a purchase order's had a delivery date of yesterday, or maybe it's tomorrow, instead of a human going up there and calling the vendor saying, hey, is this going to be delivered on time because I got to get product out the door? Now all of a sudden that agent is emailing the vendor saying, hey, this is running late, or when's this going to come in, or whatever. So having that automated process I think is going to really shift the way people do business. So yeah, the agents, I'm really excited to see how they work and, put them in real life use cases. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's coming very fast as you look at partners like yourself investing and putting these out in the community or even users working off of other users, right? And all their joint work coming together and making impact even faster. So yeah, couldn't agree more. And I'm excited for the future because I think every day you're hearing of new technology that's coming out, that portfolio of agents that are out there working together, right, continues to grow at an alarming rate,
Yeah.
really. And it's almost like how do you consume what's available and what's out there at the rate what they're being built, and it's almost impossible. So again, I think Alicia, I couldn't thank you enough for joining us today, sharing your insights. It's great to have people like you in the community who, again, just had that idea to come out here, start blogging, and get involved. For those interested, you could join us at Community Summit North America running October 19th to 23rd in Orlando, Florida. She'll be speaking. You can meet her in person. You can high five, right? And you can listen in on her sessions, right? Where she'll be able to work with you and maybe even lend her ear to get some additional tips and tricks and geek out a little bit, which we can do it in person, right? To your point, even
Absolutely.
more exciting. And for those that also want to join her, we'll be doing an MVP reception. We'll be honoring her and the additional MVPs in the community as well Monday night from 8 to 9:30 at Community Summit. She has a code to get you 10% off your registration to Community Summit and also access to this invite only reception Monday night where you'll be able to geek out with again her and the rest of the MVPs, some Microsoft execs at Community Summit. So Alicia, thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here. I look forward to seeing you all at Summit.
Yeah, thanks again everybody for joining us on MVP Insights and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.